all of us used to be wrong about something. That's where we all started from. And people who, I remember people marching during COVID, and I was just sort of shrug it off, and I'd see Piers Corbyn, and I'd be like, oh, I don't want to be associated. I remember that feeling, and I was wrong because it didn't impact me directly, or I thought it didn't. But the other thing that we have in common is that something shook all of us out of our complacency. Now, everybody, it might be something different, but the point is that we all experienced something, and we all came to the conclusion that the system wasn't working the way that we thought that it should. Because it's much easier, I'm a traditional lefty and I'm a comedian, and it was much easier just to be part of that world, to be part of that bubble. I don't want to think about these things. I just want to assume that I am right about everything and not read an article and not think about anything. I just want to feel that feeling of moral superiority and not actually have to earn it. And then, of course, Corbyn came along for me. But the thing is, whatever it was for you, I have no doubt that once your eyes get open to that one thing, you start seeing other parts of our society that are failing as well. And that's not necessarily some failing by design or conspiracy. There are people who have different positions to you who might be doing what they genuinely believe is the right thing. But the point is, you come to a conclusion that your best interests aren't being served. And that's what brings us to the next thing that we all have in common. Because when you start going down that road and it starts dawning on you that maybe our society isn't heading in the direction that you think that it should, you might also remember, maybe some of you didn't, maybe you spoke up straight away, but I remember very clearly that feeling of being shut down, of being silenced and gaslit by our media, by our institutions, even by our friends, by our colleagues. That fear of silence surrounding you. And what we all have in common here is that all of us at some point put our head above the parapet and spoke up. We used our speech. We used our free speech. Now, it might just be with your friends. I remember being in a pub with some friends, with some mates, and talking about women's sports, and they didn't care. And I remember bringing it up, and they didn't want to talk about it, and they accused me of being a bigot. But at some point, all of us here spoke up. And I think whether we realized it at that time or later, it was because we knew that we had not just the ability for free speech, because the reality is that actually it isn't free, as you know, but we had the responsibility of free speech, because it only comes into existence when you use it. And there are people out there who used it to great detriment to their lives. People like J.K. Rowling, people unknown, many people who've lost their jobs, ostracized. So that free speech came with a price, but they were able to utilize it. And that's something we all have here. I don't need to preach in a church to the converted. You all understand it. You all understand that without that bedrock, we can't deal with these other issues that we need to deal with. Because that's the third and final thing that we all have in common, is that we are optimists. You're here because you're an optimist. That's why you're here. That's why you're not at home. You're here because you know that something is broken in our society, and you're here because you know that by coming together you have the potential, that we have the potential to fix it. That's what we're trying to do. That's why we're using our free speech. We might not agree on certain issues, but we see something that is broken, and we have come here together because we believe that our time can be used to fix it. And we've seen changes. We've seen things change. We've seen people change their opinions and come down this road with us. And they will on these other matters. And that's why it's so important that we are here together, but also that we celebrate that optimism and celebrate that future that we can get back to together, where society will make sense again. And I believe it will.